Last night, we got an excellent quarter from WM, the garbage disposal operation / provider of comprehensive environmental solutions, formerly known as Waste Management. This company delivered a healthy top and bottom line beat, driven by strength in the core business, along with mostly positive guidance. That's why the stock jumped more than 3% today. Well, the few that I have, it really looked great. This one's important because the garbage business can actually give you a great read on the economy. So let's take a closer look with Jim Fish. He's the CEO of WM, doing more. Mr. Fish, welcome back to Mad Money.
Thanks, Jim. How are you?
All right. Now, Jim, I got to tell you, I typically do not do this, but I have to congratulate you for saying something that really made my day. You called your stock a forever stock. We used to have some of those. We don't anymore. What makes a forever stock?
Well, I think it's a stock that performs well quarter in and quarter out, year in and year out. And I would tell you over the last, decade or so, we've done exactly that. So I think investors should look at it as a stock that you buy and hold indefinitely.
Well, I think that some of the reasons why is because you've made acquisitions. Some people call them tuck-in. I disagree. You bought Sterycle. That turned out to be a fantastic acquisition that certainly doesn't seem to have any, that seems to be completely resilient to the economy.
If you look at the aging population, I mean, I think I read somewhere that in 1980, we were 29 years old, and now we're 39 years old. So, it seems like a kind of a normal path, secular trend, I guess, that you would take advantage of. And that's exactly what we're doing with that acquisition.
Well, it was fantastic. Healthcare Solutions, EBITDA margins in the Healthcare Solutions improved 170 basis points. You actually raised your gross margins pretty much everywhere. How are you able to consistently do that?
The business, the core business itself continues to drive gross margins in addition to what you just mentioned with healthcare solutions. At the same time, we had a bit of kind of headwind as well, but the business overall is doing so well that it was able to overcome some of the headwinds. The core business, whether it's pricing, whether it is cost control on both the operating expense line or the SG&A line, both of those continue to really perform well, and therefore the raise in our margin expectations.
Well, it's terrific. I also felt that there'd be a time when I would interview you or your predecessor, and if commodity prices declined 15%, we would have had to explain why this hurt the business. It didn't.
So my predecessor is running the post office now, so hopefully he's paying attention to this.
How about it? That's why I thought of it. He's got a great job. He's going to make that thing work, isn't he?
I think he is.
But the recycling, he even talked about that when the Chinese pulled the rug from under Waste Management. Then it hurt, but not now.
That's true. And years ago, we were pretty susceptible to these big fluctuations, big peaks and valleys in the recycling business. We've really smoothed that out by putting some things in some of these contracts that protect us a bit. And at the same time, while the recycling business has grown, other parts of our business, like the healthcare solutions business, provide a little bit of a natural hedge.
Definitely. Now, Jimmy, help me. I've been trying to figure out what to do if I were Fed chairman. And not only mostly because David Faber, my colleague, says I'm going to get appointed. I don't think that's true. But I feel like that you would give me a good view about both the consumer and industrial, because you do a lot of stuff in residential. Because the residential seems a little bit weaker. I would understand the president's position, but industrial doesn't seem all that bad. I understand the Fed's position.
The residential business is really not driven as much by the economy. It's really driven by kind of population, and the piece of the economy or the piece of the business that really looks like it's driven by the economy is our commercial business, our industrial business, and then on the landfill side, our municipal solid waste, construction and demolition, and really all of those are either very healthy or improving from where they've been. So while I'd love to see a rate cut, I'm not sure that the economy is weak at this point. In fact, it looks like it's strengthening to us.
You and me both. This is what's so difficult. I know yesterday on air, I kind of got a little bit too exuberant, but this is the big Fed conundrum, which is that what you just described. I think some stuff is definitely getting better. Some industrial stuff is just plain out strong.
Our construction and demolition business is probably the business that best indicates what things are going to look like going forward. And sequentially, that continues to improve. It's improved every quarter for the last 4. This was a very strong quarter in Q2, and the month of June itself was the strongest of the 3 months in the quarter. So I do think the economy is starting to show some real signs of improvement.
Now, how about the California economy? 1/5 of the country. I know you had wildfires there. Hard to determine how well or how poorly it did.
I mean, our California business is very important to us. It always seems to do reasonably well. This year, it was we were impacted by the cleanup, and we participate with these communities in cleaning up after natural disasters, and certainly the fires were no exception. We do the same whether it's in Florida with hurricanes or the Midwest with tornadoes or whatever the case is. So the California business was actually up a bit this year because of the fire cleanup. We certainly don't like to see those things happen, but when they do happen, we're good partners to our communities.
One last question, Jim. I actually have friends who are in your industry, but they're much smaller than you are. The regulatory problem for them is very, very difficult. They have to spend a lot of money to do it. Their margins go down. Sometimes they just leave the business. Increasing regulatory requirements for you, as you mentioned, page 18 of your deck, they actually work in your favor to some degree, don't they?
To some degree, I think that's right. You and I have talked about that in the past. We kind of self-regulate above the minimum, and so what we've said is that regulations to an extent. I mean, look, if you close down landfills, that wouldn't be good for us, but we regulate our landfills at a much higher level than is required, and so to some degree, added regulations work in our favor.
Well, you do have declining landfill airspace availability. You mentioned that landfill is expected to close in the next 15 years. Yeah. Quite a few, 400.
So the entire industry is seeing a decline in landfill airspace, and it really starts to ramp up this year. So if you look over the next 15 years, landfill airspace does decline quite a bit. We're in an advantaged position there because in 9 of the 10 biggest MSAs in the United States, we have the best located landfill, and we have longer lives to those landfills. So that ends up being a positive for us.
Well, I got to tell you, I think that your commercial works really great. The one where it looks like, it's a nice park, and that people should realize that it's not the end of the world when a landfill ends. Sometimes it can look pretty darn good.
Yeah, absolutely right. You're right about that.
Well, anyway, thank you so much. Congratulations. It is a forever stock. It's a great term because we don't have many of them anymore. That's Jim Fish, WM CEO. Thank you, Jim.
Coming up, Cramer takes your calls. And the sky's the limit. It's a fast-fire lightning round. Next.